Hello, hello, everyone. I am super excited to be here today with my guest, Daphne Valcin. And, rather than me speaking for anyone, and certainly for Daphne, I wanted to, first of all, thank you for your presence here, but wanted to just kind of jump in and say, when other people meet you for the first time, right, and they ask you, what do you do? Like, what is your job? What is your profession? What do you say about yourself? How do you kind of define yourself?
Sure. Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me here. And then, how I define myself is I usually say that I'm an executive coach and corporate trainer. And then I might also say that I support teams when it comes to corporate culture, and I support people to really do the best at what they do, for whatever that is.
I love that. It's also you clearly the elevator pitch has been refined over time, and you're somebody who knows how to present and pitch yourself confidently, which is half the battle in our line of work, right?
Yes, it is.
So, um, one of the questions that I actually ask some of my coaching clients at the start of whether it's the first time I'm meeting them or or the fifth session is sort of like what's been the best part of your day or maybe the best part of your week so far?
That is such a great question. I think the best part of my week so far, I did a speaking engagement for the West End Atlanta Perimeter North on Monday. And it was around how the team could basically be equipped and energized to knock out their goals for the next quarter. And there were two women who came up and gave a testimonial at the end of the speaking engagement, and that touched my heart. One said one activity that we did was the best she's done in 16 years of working with the organization. So, woo, they do great activities. I love them. They have great culture, but it was really good to hear that. And then another
Yeah.
woman who was probably around my mom's generation was saying that I touched on a number of things that helped her as a Caribbean woman. I'm also a Caribbean woman. To be able to communicate better with team members based on how we were raised and then
Mm.
the expectations of how to approach the workplace. So I thought that was really powerful as well. So that was one of the highlights of my week this week.
Oh, that sounds awesome, and thank you for sharing that. So you mentioned executive coach, and I've had conversations before, before this with you, and I've perused your LinkedIn and some of your content, so I'm a little bit more informed than some of the listeners. But tell us how did kind of the genesis story? How did you get started in this line of work?
Sure. So, what I love to do when it comes to executive coaching is help people to optimize their work and optimize their team culture.
Mm.
And the reason why I think those two things are so really important to me is that I think that those were some things that I did well when I was an employee, when I was working for other
Mm.
people. It was just really important to me that people really enjoyed their work. They enjoyed coming to work, they enjoyed being part of the team. And then also it was important for me to operate in excellence. Something again that comes from the way my dad was with us, everything had to be excellent. So when I started working for people, I'm like, how can I make this excellent for you? But I know that I realized that there are a number of things that I did that I didn't realize, processes, systems, approaches that helped me to optimize things and that I could share those with others. So I was working in education and public relations. My first job where I was able to work my way up as an assistant director was for a nonprofit that was out of college, where I worked my way up from a student assistant to assistant director. And then after
Wow.
that, I basically had a number of positions over time, over the years, that were around project management for nonprofits, or public affairs for a policy organization, or education running programs for young people. So I had all these different positions, and I was about to get my MBA and go into human capital or entrepreneurship when I met my husband. Go husband. And that had me shift the
Yeah.
directions because once I realized I might be getting married, I might be having children, I thought, how can I put together my passions for tapping into the potential of people and their ideas into one career? And so that's when coaching came up as an option for me to be able to do, which I think I was doing for free before. I was
Mm. Yeah.
I'd be at a social event in DC and like, oh, what do you do? And someone would tell me what they do and maybe what they were trying to do. And I'd be like, oh, I have some resources for you. If you'd like, we could meet at a restaurant in a few weeks and maybe talk more about what it is that you're doing and how I might be able to support you. And I would just support them over and over and over again. And I didn't know that people got paid for that. Actually, one of my longstanding clients now, I've been doing this for 10 years in June. So one of my longstanding clients before I was a coach said to me, maybe 2 years before, the work that you're helping me with when it came to his nonprofit and launching his nonprofit, he said, someday you'll be charging for this. So I'm gonna take
Yeah.
that's free.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
a lot of goodies that you dropped so
yeah.
far. So the first thing that resonated earlier on is when you were talking about, I think, your dad, that sort of pursuit of excellence, which I resonate with as an immigrant. One of my pet peeves, honestly, is not like mullets, right? Mullets coming back, that's a big one for me, right? Like that does not work for me, right? No mullets, but hey, I guess the youngins, they're gonna do what they're gonna do. But mediocrity. Like for
Mhm.
me, I do not sit well with mediocrity. If you're going to do something, do it well, give it your all. You may fail, but you're pursuing excellence, right? So for me, mediocrity is just one of my pet peeves, but that resonated. But then the other thing that resonated is you were kind of doing this casually. You weren't even getting paid for it. It was your zone of genius, but it wasn't yet monetizable. And the way you were talking about it was there was such ease. It was so easeful. You were like just reaching out. Hey, let's chat. Let's go to the restaurant. You had follow through. Like you were selling yourself without having to sell yourself. Like that to me is like the ideal way to promote and sell. But so that's something else that kind of resonated. Any thoughts on anything that I've shared so far, or are we good to keep going?
I'd like to just share that I was sharing with I think it's a client or maybe a few clients at different times that I feel like I was operating in my mission always, even before I turned it into something that I monetized. I
Yeah.
was always doing things to help people and kind of like you said, in kind of a formal way. Like Busboys and Poets is my favorite restaurant in DC. That's where I was living before I got married, that area. And I would say, let's meet at Busboys and Poets and let's go over what you have, like share it with me, and then we could talk about what you can do next. But I was doing that. I just did it because I felt like it was the right thing to do, and I was
Hmm.
something I was passionate about. Even as I'm talking about it now, I feel like I have so much energy around it. Like, yeah, I wanted to help, and it was so much fun.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the key for a lot of things that we do is figuring out how you can connect your natural passion or interest to whatever it is that you're already doing. And if
Mhm.
it seems like it's nowhere to be found in what you're doing, it may be time for a pivot or maybe time to shift how you're doing your work, maybe an outside of work, to be able to make sure you get some more of that passion in your life. Hmm.
Do you remember that first dollar that you made off of coaching, like officially? Do you recall that, or I think you said it's been almost a decade.
I recall it. I was writing about it this morning. So as well. So what happened was I was super friendly, like much of my life, say K through 12, college. So I figured when I launched my business, I was going to be full of clients. It was going to be amazing.
Mhm.
So what had happened was the first post I made about my business, the first week I was open, I think it had like one like or something. I don't remember. I don't remember, but there was definitely no consultations booked. Then I made another post about 2 days later, and then I got between 20 to 30 consultations booked
Oh,
from that
wow.
post. And then over half of the people said yes, they wanted to coach with me from the consultations, which was unexpected. I didn't know that was going to happen, but only one of them purchased my
Mhm.
coaching. And it's because I had a big, in my opinion, sales and marketing issue. I did not want to sell my coaching services. I wanted to do them for free. I didn't
Wow.
want people to like hire me and feel like they had to pay me.
Yeah.
So in my sessions, in my discovery sessions, at the end, I would say something like, but you don't have to do coaching. Even if you don't do coaching, here's what I see for you in your life, for your future, for this thing that you talked about. You don't necessarily have to do coaching to make that happen. And then I started to sell after I realized I was unselling people. And when I started to
Mm.
sell, it would be like I would knock the discovery session out of the water. I would make a difference in these people's lives. They would have new revelations. Then by the
Wow.
end of the session, I would say, So I'm supposed to sell you this now. I have a few packages and it was really not good. So, and people
Yep.
started to say yes, though. When I started to ask them if they wanted to buy the package, they started to say yes.
Wow.
Only one person initially said yes when I was unselling everyone. So it was $72. I made my first month in business.
Yay.
And I was happy to get it. I was confused as to why I wasn't getting the other people to say yes. So then I delved into many hours of free content at that time about marketing and sales, which was a lot of time and just kind of a little bit of shifting for me when it came to my business, but enough for my business to shift little by little.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you see, you weren't even mediocre at unselling. You were really, really good at unselling, right? You had a really high success rate at unselling there.
I sure
If we're
did.
gonna shift that and reframe that. So, congratulations again on essentially on almost a decade, right? You said next month. So that's
Yeah.
10 years. That's something to be proud of. So speaking of proud of, looking back, perhaps you've already shared the anecdote, right? Because you gave a couple of stories already, but if I were to kind of ask you directly, what is it that you're most proud of so far professionally?
Well, that's a very good question. I would say what's interesting about this question is that it's probably an unexpected answer. Towards the beginning, the reason why the post that I did got so many consultations, I'm sure some people are curious who are listening, is because
Mhm.
I positioned it as a win-win, not just what I want, but how this could be something that's beneficial to you that could help me in a way that you could serve. So what I said was something along the lines of, I just launched my business. I'm trying to get as many hours as I can towards my certification, which is true. I have the
Yeah.
highest certification now for coaching because I was trying to get all these hours. But I thank you so much. So I'm like, I'm trying to get as many hours as I can. So looking for people to book discovery sessions. They're completely free. Please tell your friends, your family, please book so that I can get these hours. And people told all their friends and family. So some of the most powerful sessions that I've done over the past few years, and especially during that time too, is when people referred their family members.
Mm.
And I don't know why, but those sessions would be the most deepest,
Wow.
like complex, but like biggest game-changing things would happen during the session. People's sisters, their cousins, their mothers, and the things that they shared. And that was when I positioned myself as a life coach more traditionally. So I was coaching all kinds of things,
Yeah.
but those were some of the most game-changing sessions where I could see the transformation in the session. Weeks later, I heard about the transformation, or if it was a case where someone sponsored someone for coaching, people were like, I don't know what's going on, like what you're doing with my sister or with my mother,
Wow.
but this is something that I've never seen before. So I would say the impact I've been able to have on families through
Mm.
those discovery sessions and through when people have sponsored family, for some reason, they're like super powerful, those client sessions.
Well, we know, at least I know why they're super powerful is because you're pretty darn good at your job,
Oh,
right? I mean,
no.
that's why you
Thank
create the space, right? I mean, let's be honest, they're also ready for the change. If they weren't ready for the transformation, even the best coach in the world wouldn't succeed. But they're ready, and you know how to work your craft and flex your muscles, and that is why, you know, why the dance is successful. So there's
thank
that, right?
you.
Yeah, it's because you're really good at your job. Now, the thing about so the thing I'm thinking, right, as you're sharing this with me is that's really impressive because it's one thing to have your executive coach at work and invest in professional development, which we all know we should be doing, but to then translate that to the deep, heavy work of personal stuff at home, wow, that to me is the deepest level of transformation. So if you can kind of capture and captivate, master that, then that to me that is incredibly powerful. And speaks volumes about you, but also the types of people that you attract, right? They're people who want to share their transformation and share that goodness with other people, share that light with other people. They're not just going to hoard it for themselves.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. May I share an example of that? Okay.
Please.
So one of my executive coaching clients is actually in his 60s and thinking about what next steps are for his career and his life. And he's a leader, he has a huge leadership position in his organization. So one of the things that we talked about was, what is your vision for the legacy you want to leave
Mm.
at work as you're in these years? And what do you need to do specifically planning for the next fiscal year to make sure that that legacy is implemented? And then I
Mm.
used some examples, but then I also said it's similar to what you would do at home as a parent. And I know he has
Mm.
adult children, if we want to call them that. So I shared, if you have a specific intention for what you want to do with that relationship, you would identify what are the top 2 or 3 practical things that you could do to be able to shift that within a 1-year period or for the next 5 years. But let's think about what you can plan now to be able to have the impact happen over the year. Now, with that client, I feel like the light bulb that went off for him was not so much for his career, even though that's what we were supposed to be working on,
Yeah.
but he really resonated with the children piece because he's at a point in his life where he's seeing how his children are evolving and wants to shift. And so it went there, but it applied to both, to
Mm-hmm.
career and at home. So I find with clients that, and as I know you've seen as well, oftentimes their professional goals, there's the life, like the personal
Oh
piece
yeah.
always has some sort of just component that kind of aligns with what we're working on professionally. Yeah.
I love that. And
Mhm.
again, I mean, I'm making generalized statements here, but I have found that in some cases, especially for the overachievers, the executives, the high performers, the overthinkers, they've succeeded, at least on paper, with the promotions and their titles at work. So that looks good on paper, but sometimes it's at the cost of what at home. So the life at home can be a little bit messy. So if they feel empowered and comfortable and excited about you coaching them on that part of their lives, when they're ready to get their hands dirty, so to speak, that is power. That is tremendous. That is like proof in the pudding. That's awesome.
And it translates so well to both.
It does, right? Because if you're empathetic, if you're thoughtful, if you're a good active listener, that you can use at the grocery store, at the post office, in the boardroom, at home on a Friday night. These are transferable and translatable skills. Absolutely agree with you there. So you're talking to these people. You're obviously providing great value. They're kind of spreading the message. And not necessarily, and I know from personal experience that there is still to this day a misconception about what coaching is or isn't, right? So tell me from your lived experience and from your perspective, what are some maybe common, maybe thoughts or misconceptions or myths that you've seen people come to you with at the outset?
I love this question. And I'm going to start with the end of what a client shared today actually, and she closed out her package, and then I'll go back to the beginning. So the client was just sharing, just out of her heart, about what her thoughts were about our packages. We closed out a 3-month time and working together. And she said, what I really like about your approach is what she told me is that it's personalized and it's niche based to what it is that I needed. And I feel like I got so much value from that. And she shared that she had a coach before that had a curriculum that she
Mhm.
followed, and they did a lot of work associated with the curriculum. I had a different style of what is it that you need and how can we accomplish that? And then we created a roadmap for that. She said she found value in both of those
Mhm.
approaches, but she really was grateful for this
Yeah.
approach that I had during this time. So I say that to first say coaches coach differently. They all have different styles. Some
Yep.
are very energetic, some have more of a
Me.
moderate energy.
Yeah, yeah,
Some
yeah.
are going to dig deep. Others are going to be more kind of
Yeah.
what the kind of things that are going on at the surface that they can
Mhm.
accomplish. Some are about action, 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 action. Some are about, well, let's make sure that we go back to the root of
Mhm.
what is causing you to procrastinate or to not speak to your value or whatever it is, and then let's attack that, and then we can go into action. But generally, at the beginning of the package, what I talk about always with everyone in our discovery session are the differences between coaching and other things it's compared to. So I say coaching is often compared to things like therapy. A therapist may have you sit with the details of your past in order for you to get to your 100%. Whereas in coaching, we may reference your past only to immediately bring you into the present and then push you forward into action. I talk about
Mm.
coaching versus mentoring. And I say with mentors, mentors often use their story or stories of others who they know or who they don't know to say you should go down a certain path or you shouldn't. Whereas in coaching, I'm learning about your story more than anyone else's, I'm learning about your vision and your values to make sure that whatever it is that you're doing is aligned with that. I talk about coaching versus consulting and say a
Mm.
consultant may create a plan for you. They may even implement the plan for
Mm.
you. Whereas in coaching, we're collaborating on the plan and I'm holding you accountable for implementation. And then I lastly share about friendship, coaching versus friendship.
Yes.
And I say a friend may or may not hold you accountable because they may think the timing is not right. They're not sure if they're going to offend you. They're not sure if it's any of their business. Whereas in coaching, it is my honor to hold you accountable. And the more I hold my clients accountable, the more they tend to produce. And I talk about the order is different. In a friend conversation, we may talk about all kinds of things. The weather that's outside, maybe your family is visiting you this week, and we'll talk about that, all kinds of things. Whereas in coaching, I tell my clients or the prospective clients, I'll try my best to maximize the value of our conversation. So if I find that we're veering too far away from whatever it is that we're trying to work on, I'll gently redirect the conversation back. And then lastly, I say friends tend to be subjective listeners where they're sharing based on their experiences and their opinions. Whereas when it comes to coaches, I'm an objective listener. So I keep in mind what it is that you desire, your vision, your values, and then I'm listening in a way where I can help you to make those decisions and take those action steps that are in alignment with where it is that you're telling me that you want to be. And then I say, ultimately, coaching is a mix of some mentorship, some consulting, some things that I spoke about earlier, but
Yeah.
ultimately, us collaboratively moving forward and helping you to get to the vision that it is that you desire. So that's what I say.
Wow.
I've
Okay.
been doing that for 10 years.
Let me just pause right there because I don't usually use these reactions, but I'm going to do, I hope that people can see. Just wanted to do a little applause there because you
Thank
just
you.
condensed multitudes and cosmos and universes and galaxies into, you know, a little bit of a snippet. Thank you for that. That was powerful and energizing. That was awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm surprised at how much prospective clients take from that one section. They're like, this is so good. I took notes because I
Yeah.
think it's very confusing to
Mhm.
compare therapy and coaching or mentorship and coaching or any of those things. It's very confusing to a lot of people. So
Yep.
saying that apparently from what prospects say is that it gives them a lot of clarity and that they're taking notes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because, you know, well, first of all, some people think, you know, they're like, wait, a coach, an athletic or a sports coach. I think enough people today know what coaching is. It's about mindset, it's about behavior, it's about approach, communication, confidence, clarity. So
Mm,
the tide has shifted and it's become more commonplace. There's certainly there's just it's more talked about, and you know there's that overlap with therapy and mental health, which I think is now being talked about more openly than in my memory, than in recent memory or history. So there's a lot of overlap there, but I just love kind of how succinctly and how powerfully you were able to describe and delineate and separate all of those different parts. And it's good for our industry, right? Because then we have these clients who are now like, oh, no, 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 you know, Daphne's not a therapist. It might be cathartic. It might have some sort of overlap with, you know, the therapeutic experience. It might be cathartic to have this experience, to talk about the hard things, but it's really, you know, focused on, okay, now and then future focus. We don't kind of stick in the past, right? The way that therapy might. Um, and it's wonderful, right? Because the consulting piece, you know, some clients actually want a consultant, right? For whatever it is, you know, they're like their marketing sucks, or whatever it is. They want and need a consultant, and that is great, right? There is a place for consulting. I'm very clear on what I can and can't do. There are areas in which I can't consult, right? So if somebody wants to, you know, focus on how to leverage LinkedIn or want to create a really strong executive resume, yes, that's more consulting because we're implementing something tangible. But when we're talking about mindset, so oh, you're having trouble interviewing, you hate networking, or you avoid it like the plague. That's more coaching. That's the mindset work that I love, right? So I'm loving this. I'm loving it. So among all the different things that you're doing, and we'll kind of talk a little bit more about some of those details, but what is what is most energizing for you? Of all the things, of all the plates that you're juggling, what's most energizing for you at this time?
Hmm. Well, I do right now I have always an average of around 20 to 25 coaching clients per month. Don't be alarmed. For me, for those, there's always people who are alarmed. But
Amazing,
thank you so much. Because for some people that's a lot. But for me, for some reason, I can recall details for clients,
amazing.
think of them as extended family.
Yeah,
So 20 to 25 is just right. And then I have 2 or 3 speaking engagements per month. And when I say speaking engagements, sometimes it's more of motivational speaking. And then sometimes it's more a training
yeah,
that is training on a specific concept, like difficult conversations,
yeah.
or customer service or something like that. So the thing that I love, 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 love the most is coaching.
Hmm.
So just love it. It's just so fun. It's just so wonderful.
One-on-one, right?
Yeah.
One-on-one, you
Yeah,
love?
one-on-one coaching is it's awesome, and it's just like with teachers, how some teachers love teaching high school, some love teaching
Mhm.
elementary school, some middle school. The middle school teachers like would never teach high school teachers are like, I don't know how people could teach elementary school, and so on and so forth. With coaches, there are different coaches that have different things that they love and things that they don't. And there are a number of coaches that love team coaching or group coaching. They don't like one-on-one, some like one-on-one. I love one-on-one coaching. It is
Yeah.
just fantastic and
Mhm.
phenomenal. So that is something that gets me really excited.
That's amazing. And I had a friend once who, started his own coaching, and well, I continue to have this friend, but I had a friend who once told me that he had like 17 clients in a single week. It was something intense, and he found it not draining. And that was awesome. And I was like, yeah. And so now I'm feeling that, right? As my business continues to expand, I'm like, yeah, was speaking, mostly listening, but I was engaging and, using my energy for all these clients in a given day, a full slate, and I'm not drained. That's how you know you found something that you're good at and you love and is not gonna, like, sap you of all of your life force at the end of every day. So speaking of, right, because reality isn't always roses and lollipops. So what is what has been maybe either a challenge that you're currently facing, or in the last 10 years, what has been a challenge for you in terms of your career, your coaching practice?
That is such a great question. One of the challenges that comes to mind is balancing work and motherhood. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, and I have 2 children, 6 years old and 8 years old, 2 little girls. And I know that some people say that their kids don't really want to talk to them and they like play games or do activities on their own. But my children are very different and they like to be around me. If I'm
That's
at home,
awesome.
they want to be right next to me. Uh, and because of that, when I first had my first child, my oldest, before that, I was working 60 hours a week in my business. After she was born, uh, first of all, I didn't know people had kids, so I took a 3-week maternity leave, which is apparently it's too little. I didn't know that. And then after that, I started working 12 hours a week. That was a big shift for me as someone who before kids was like super ambitious,
Yeah.
whatever it takes, burn the midnight oil, like what, all that kind of stuff. I realized all of a sudden I had this little person who needed me quite a bit, and so over the years, I've tried to figure out how to structure my business where I'm able to give the time that I want to give to my children and still give the energy and time that I would like to give to my clients. So that has shifted and changed. Sometimes when the kids were babies and little, I worked 3 days a week instead of 5 days a week. I had to learn, great lesson, how to put 60 hours of work into 25 hours. That's why I ramped up for like a year or two,
Yeah.
and that was great because I realized there were a lot of things I needed to delete. Those who know the Eisenhower matrix, I needed to delete a number of things off of my schedule that were not even
Hmm.
that important. I needed to optimize some things. I needed to delegate some things. So that is an ongoing. challenge or opportunity to always figure out, how do I approach this aspect of my business in a way that aligns with both my desire to grow and do things in excellence, but also wanting to make sure that I give time to my kids. And for those who may not have children, like work-life balance, or even like my mom, I also talk to her every single day and had to like figure out, where do I have my mom in my daily routine? She's in
Yep.
Florida, I'm in Georgia, but where do I do that? Because she's important to me and
Yeah.
I like talking to her. So that was, I would say that's kind of an ongoing challenge slash opportunity that I'm always trying to strategize around.
I love that. And people say zero sum game, right? And for me, when you've shared that, the phrase that came to my mind, I don't know if I'm coining it or if it's just a random thought, is like I'm going to call it a full sum game. So in other words, let's say you have your 60 hours of energy, of work energy per week. You used to dedicate that all to work. Now you can do that, dedicate a little bit of that to the kiddos, to mom, to other activities, to work, to business development, to one-on-one coaching. And together, obviously a little bit more here, a little bit less here, but together it still adds to a full sum, a full life, right? As opposed to like, oh, I can no longer work, a full time, therefore I am a failure. Or I can no longer be a full stay-at-home mom. I have to go to work, therefore I'm a failure. Those are narratives that are kind of bounced around, right? And that's what I hear. And it's actually really important for me. This is my agenda. I'm supposed to be detached from the client's agenda, but it is my agenda to help people see that there are no rules. I mean, there are social norms and expectations, yeah, but at the end of the day, this is your life, and you get to determine how you want to lead it. And back to that legacy that you were sharing with about your client earlier, what legacy as a human being do you want to leave on, on your deathbed? So,
Exactly. My client said this today, and I told her I was going to share it with a whole bunch of people. I won't say her name here, but I'm gonna say it at speaking engagements. I told her, but um, she said this in an interview that she had at some point. She said, "I dream of unlimited possibilities."
mhm.
And she said when she said it, everybody put their hand on their heart.
That's
But
awesome.
what an amazing
Right
thing
there.
to
Heart.
do is dream of unlimited
Yeah.
possibilities. That is
Yep.
so amazing. And that's why I said, even with the thinking about time, I love how you talked about the full sum life. You get to create and shift and choose, and then I think it's embracing what you have. I used to be a choreographer, so if you see some dance movements,
Oh yeah. I love it.
but it's about embracing what you have, even if it's not exactly what you would choose. I keep looking at the art behind you, just like
Yeah.
art, like your life is a piece of art with unlimited possibilities. So
That's
I love what you shared.
And I love when clients drop bombs and gems and insights like that, because you're just like, it's a two-way street. We as coaches, we hear this kind of language, we immerse in it, but when clients kind of start using some of those open-ended or possibility or future-focused abundance mindset kind of things, when they start doing that to us, we're like, oh wow, this is really working. They're sort of and they're starting to become more self-aware, self-sufficient. So that way, when the engagement ends, inevitably, whether it's in a month or 6 months or a year or two, they can start, kind of creating those ripples in their lives and their work lives and their family lives. So it's really neat to see that. Um, what I'll say about this piece of art, when you were talking about the heart, like people were kind of touching their heart. So I've many people have seen this because I've posted about it on LinkedIn or Instagram at some point. But and by the way, I'm also a dancer. So I dance through life now. I used to dance a little bit more formally as a kid, but for me, life is really about the rational and the passion, right? So it's just like, it's essentially, when I was just a career coach and now I've expanded to being a general communication confidence coach, executive coach. Most career decisions are made out of like rational decisions, like the money and like commute and what's best for my long-term career, and or like what will I love, what will be most fulfilling, what will make me a better human being. So it's like this dance between the cold rational brain and this like fiery red passionate heart. So this piece of art is just relevant to almost every conversation I have with a client. There's some way that this piece of art is relevant. And so when I do coaching sessions via video in this space, in this location, I don't even have to speak. Like, people always ask about it, or they talk about it. It becomes a conversation piece. So
I love that piece of art, and I love that idea of both and
yeah,
figuring out what that looks like for you.
yeah. Well, Daphne, this has been absolutely lovely. I appreciate you. I adore you. I admire you. I want you to share with others how they can best find you. You know, the media, the handles, the websites. What's the best way for people to learn a little bit more about your work?
Sure. You can find me at my website, which is daphnevalcin.com. And that's DAPHNE, Valcin, VALCIN, .com. My Instagram handle is my name, Daphne Valcin. So LinkedIn as well, Daphne
Yeah.
Valcin. You can find me there, LinkedIn, Instagram, or my website. Look forward to connecting.
I appreciate you, Daphne. Have a wonderful and empowering day. Thank you so much for your energy.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.